Good evening. To many Hindus, today is a very special day, Rama Navami, that is the birth of Lord Rama. For many people in the Western world, the story of Rama or Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the two great epics of India, are unknown to them. But in this day and age where we have social media, where we have also the YouTube and many interesting videos, particularly orientated around children, it is now becoming increasingly popular to see these stories. They are not mere stories, of course. It belongs to a classification of literature called itihasas, that is, historical epics. And while there may be many fantastic embellishments around these stories, the central core and theme is very solidly the same and has lasted for several thousands of years. And also arrived in different versions and inspired much poetry, much painting, much drama. And again, of course, we find the great poetry of Tulsidas elucidating in wonderful poetic language and heartfelt language the story, the trials, and the devotional aspect of this Ramayana. Of course, from very early ages, practical Vedic people understood that there was a tremendous universal tussle between two opposing forces. And so we also think of Durga Ma as well, this period of time. But you may wonder, universally, this is all very well for the Hindus and for the Vedic people and so on. But I have to tell you that one Irish devotee I introduced to the Ramayana, at least one, and he now has made this a central book of his life because he loves the medium of story. Not only the medium of story, but he loves the various subtle layers and levels of meaning and the lessons that it teaches and the various characters that are layered. Because the Ramayana contains everything, all ingredients you can think of. It contains pathos, it contains humor, a great deal of humor. You know, on the shores of, if you know the story, and I'm sure you do, just as they are thinking, they're located where Sita is, and they're wondering, how can we send a messenger or send some contact across? And in discussing this, we find that Sugriva seems to know the topography very well, very familiar with it. And when he's asked, how do you know it? He says, well, I had to kind of go around and about because I was chased by my brother Wali. So I had no choice. And there's a kind of element of light humor in that. And what is added to it is that he says, so it was a case of pure necessity, which made this person, knowing all this geography and topography, so savvy. Another great example of humor is that the Vanara warriors standing in the beach facing the south now on the shore. And they've got conclusive evidence now where Mother Sita is. And they're wondering who among all of them can cross the sea. And of course, this requires some kind of superhuman effort, or at least some advanced kind of machinery. And the senior consultant, Jabavan, is discussing with the Vanaras, the monkey forces, and among them, what are your respective flying abilities? A kind of competition he brings out. And Hanuman is very quiet. He doesn't say anything. Of course, he's the one who has the ability. And so they're discussing how many measures of distance or yojanas that people can go. And Angad, the prince, he declares, oh, I can fly to Lanka, no problem. And everybody becomes uplifted. Wonderful, wonderful. You can now fly across. And then he says, but, there's always a but. I can't really fly back. So I can't fly back to tell you that I found Mother Sita, that I've dialogued with her, that I've assured her, and so on, and located her exactly. And then, of course, there's the episode where in the forest, Ram and Lakshmana are there, and Sita's there, and we find that Ravana's sister comes and Karna, and she sees the good-looking nature of these very handsome princes, ignoring the fact that there is the most exquisite Sita there, and says, "Oh, marry me. Look how beautiful I am," because she has the capacity to transform herself. And Rama jokingly says, "Oh, no, you're looking at the wrong person. Please go here. Lakshmana, he's my brother, and he's very handsome and so on, and he's not attached. Go and ask him." And in this way, she goes back and forth between the two brothers. So we find this element of humor there, but we also find philosophy. The philosophy comes out in a much deeper way, apart from the obvious part of it, in the Adhyatma Ramayana, a 14th century work, 14th century, this current era. And there we find the most profound Vedanta philosophy, and well worth studying. And here a question arises: how can a human be subject to human anxiety and sadness? When Sita goes, the whole episode in the Ramayana is dedicated to his absolute despondency, sitting down, feeling tremendously hopeless. And in the midst of this, Lakshmana now boosts his brother up, lifts him up. So now a question arises, and the question is asked to Shiva in this Adhyatma Ramayana. How can this person be subject, as it were, to the same mire as all humans, and still be declared as eternally divine? And the Adhyatma Ramayana spends a lot of time discussing this question. And there it's well worth the study, because it brings our mind back to one factor. Even though from ancient times the obvious was noticed and declared that this whole universe is a pair of opposites. Even in the Vedas, we find Indra battling the Asuras and vice versa, and one chasing the other. And here in this universe, from a physics point of view, we see the universe wanting to fold itself in, and another force wanting to push it outward. We find these contradictory forces are there. These opposing forces are the forces that make the universe run, and we should be thankful for them. So this is the one system that says, not everything should be good. There should be evil also. In this system, there is no theological problem of evil. And so this only, we don't say that God is entirely good, but we say that the real solid truth, the thing that continues to exist when all the variable changes are gone, that entity is above good and evil. How can we know the beauty of the day if there's no nightfall? How can we know the sunshine if we don't know the darkness, the light if we don't know the shade? But our prayer is, lead us from darkness to light. And this is not the light just of the temporal world. This is not the light of the positron versus the electron. This is not the plus and the minus. And this kind of symbiotic relationship between pairs of opposites is really what makes the universe run. But we want to not get out of the universe, we want to understand it. And in understanding it, we transcend it also. Ram was a transcendent entity, and coming down from age to age, embodied as man. And this whole question of the coming down, this whole question of the avatar, is discussed at the very beginning of this work. So there are many layers to discover in the story of Rama and the character of Rama, but principally we find the message of Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma is this natural harmonizing force that reconciles this plus and minus, that brings everything into harmony. The whole of nature has an intrinsic harmony. What we're calling this virus is just containing an intrinsic harmony. And we find that part of this Dharma will be the impact on us, which we call sadness, which we call despondency. There are many people, obviously, who have been suffering now, even in very subtle ways. Imagine now, even in these developed countries, small children being kept indoors, and they know something is wrong. You can't hide the fact from them. Some explanation has to be there for the fact that people are behaving not in a normal way. This is for developing countries where space is there and families, maybe a household has maybe 2, 3, 4 people in it. What about those people who live in high density areas? What do you mean by high density areas? There's a place in Johannesburg called the Alexander Township. And there are many places also in Asia, probably South America too, where there are mere shacks. And within that shacks, what we have is maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 people living. How is it possible for them to be locked down, not to go out? They have to go out even for personal hygiene purposes, just for basic functions. So these are some of the sufferings that the whole world is enduring at the moment. And the Ramayana is full of it. Imagine now the idea that you are destined and the expectations are high in a human way. We can find how then all of a sudden this jealousy arises and internal politics takes place in the palace. And we find this Rama going into the forest. Now he took it with an equilibrium of mind. So far, so good. But then the greatest thing of all, the abduction of Sita. And no wonder Ram sits down in a state of great, great despondency. Imagine now, from a human level, how that would feel. And then, of course, the last chapter of the Ramayana is deemed by many to be an external addition, to be an addendum to the story. Tulsidas has the story ending in Ayodhya, Sita being rescued, he's going back in triumph. But you see, very great authorities that I know of on this Valmiki Ramayana say this, no reason for this to be any kind of interpolation or addition, because life intrinsically is a drama that incorporates misfortune. And being a drama, we find all the players going back to where they came from. So where did they come from originally? We find the Ramayana begins in a heavenly scene, and all the characters are manifested and play the scene out. So Sita and Rama become idealistic models in marriage. Even for this reason alone, it's worth studying this. But more importantly, it's worth reflecting, because this is a time of reflection in the evening. Reflecting not just the lessons, but also in the beauty of the harmonizing element that we find, that we call nature, this Dharma. The Adhyatma Ramayana tells us some beautiful things, and I can read some extracts translated. Know Rama to be the supreme Brahman, not just a character in a story. The existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, the one without a second, is pure existence, devoid of all adjuncts, whom the senses cannot perceive as their object. Even in this small extract, we can meditate on the various adjuncts and that which joins them together and that which transcends them. What do we mean by adjuncts? The technical term often used in translations, upadi. Upadi that is proximate adjuncts. But do we have an example? Yes. A light bulb is something that is an adjunct to the electrical current unseen and omnipresent to the extent that it is in the electromagnetic wave system and invisible. It restricts the freedom of the electrical current at a certain frequency or a certain wavelength. But then you see, when you put the light bulb in and connect it to the electrical current, it becomes a manifester. It's manifesting the glory of its light everywhere. So can we also not, apart from taking the lessons of the Ramayana, the inspiration and contemplation of the character of Rama and the mystery of this avatar who comes from age to age to intervene and restore Dharma, and the fact that the whole of nature is already harmonized, and that what Rama does and all other incarnations is gives us the strength and courage to play a kind of game, knowing that we have the capacity to transform discord into harmony. Rama shows us the way, the embodiment of Dharma, even in difficult circumstances, doing what is truthful, doing what is right, and doing what is harmonizing for the good of all, even to the possible detriment within the drama of others if necessary. So let us contemplate on these wonderful things, the richness of this, and happiness to you in celebrating this birth. And may we reflect not only, as I say, on the character and the events that we find in the story of Rama, but also the deep lessons and the profound philosophy that we find. This profound philosophy is the heart of Vedanta and brings us in our meditation to the central poised point of our own being. And really, this Adhyatma Ramayana tells us this Rama is the central entity within you. You may not have discovered it. You may ask a question based on your human understanding. But when you take a mystic journey within and make multiple discoveries during your progression, we come to this understanding that Rama is nothing more than the Supreme Atman, and that the story somehow reflects how the Jiva can be represented by Sita, and how when we reunite the Jiva, as it were, and when it becomes one, a unity which is Sita Ram at the end of it, and how we have the means to do it, represented by Hanuman, even as a kind of monkey, like the monkey mind, and yet through devotion and love and dedication to Sitaram, Hanuman has the strength of his own intrinsic nature, the son of the wind, and he has the capacity to make himself big or small, and he himself is the one that jumps over this ocean, the ocean of samsara. With these small contemplative reflections, we can now commence some meditation in blissful silence and profound thought that leads us to an internal elevation of mind. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.